City, where we create experiences of authentic transformation. That is what we do. That's who we are. Band, are we interrupting you? No, I'm kidding. They're over here having a conversation. I just want you to know that Charlotte Schneider told me earlier today, Judy, that you're going to have to write a song that says, "My drummer doesn't wear black." Because we're all wearing black today. We've got special music guests, Voices of Unity, in the house today. If you don't know who those people are, they're wearing black. We've also got some very special guests with us. Our friends from Church of the Living Waters are here with us today. And we are thrilled beyond measure that they have joined us this morning as we continue each and every week to celebrate our oneness in this universe. I've got just one or two quick announcements for you. First off, there's a new Lunch Bunch book that's happening Wednesdays at 11:30 is the Lunch Bunch, and they are reading 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life by Karen Armstrong. And I want to let you know that next Sunday afternoon here at the church will be a generational healing workshop with L.J. Ratliff and Camille Adair. There's more information on the bulletin board, and there's also some information on the table back there. Be sure to pick up one of the yellow bulletins and take it home with you and stick it on your refrigerator. One last thing really quickly. Those of you who know the magic password to our Wi-Fi and have your Wi-Fi turned on, if you wouldn't mind stopping for just a moment and turning that off. We do live stream on YouTube. I don't really know what bandwidth is. I think it has to do something with having 76 trombones. I'm not sure. The bandwidth. And just know that if your Wi-Fi is on, you're using about 12 of our trombones, okay? And we need all of them. We need all of them. It is my pleasure right now to bring to the platform Reverend Denise Jurgen and Pastor Tony Rogers Certain. As Denise introduced him to us, would you please? We want you all to give a warm welcome. Know that I met this amazing gentleman about January. And Becky Astorita isn't here yet. She's always running about 10 or 15 minutes late. So I was going to call her up here too. But the three of us have been on a journey together this year that has been remarkable, of creating peace circles, which we have done in the Church of the Living Waters, we have done here. And as of this week, on Thursday and Friday, we will be presenting peace circle work to Alignment Nashville Social Emotional Learning Conference for Metro Nashville Schools. So we are so excited that we're getting this information out there just beyond schools, but to people who have children, teachers, and different ways of standing for peace. Yesterday's circle was amazing, and if you missed it, as John McClain said from Unity of Nashville, just get out. That's what he said yesterday. Not really, but you missed an amazing day, because actually one of the things that was the most amazing to me is that we had two people in the circle that don't go to church at either place. The woman had been a radical Muslim that has now become a Christian. Her husband is a Republican. Just think about all that. Just jar all that up in your brain. Because all of that's like, That is the work that we are stepping up to do. To bring everyone to the table. To have a circle where we talk about peace. Yesterday we talked about our fears. We talked about where we felt safe, where we did not feel safe, and we talked about how to create more safety. I've told you about Reverend Tony. I don't know if he's going to pull out all of his bells and whistles today. I asked him not to throw a live snake on me, at least, and throw it on you, okay? Or chickens, right? But I did want him to come to the stage and do a prayer in the way and the manner that he does a prayer for our world and for peace and for everything that has been going on in the last week. So, Reverend Tony, is your mic turned on, or is he doing that back there?
Yes, but instead of me, I'm going to ask BJ.
Gotcha.
Those of you that don't know, one of my deacons is here. Deacon B.J. Maynard.
Which I knew when he was a little bitty
Right.
B.J. Maynard at the School for the Blind many, many years ago.
B.J. has been helping us with our circles, and B.J. was kind of our confirmation when we couldn't decide if we were sure this was something we were going to do, because just like you've heard about me, you don't know what to expect with me. I didn't know what to expect with Denise.
He was scared of me.
Yeah. So when BJ was there the first meeting, Denise walked in and knew BJ from the back of his head and said, "Oh, that's BJ." So that was our confirmation that we were all in the right place. So it's very important for him, the part he's playing, so in tune with so much that I wish we were as in tune as him. I wanted to ask him
Thank you.
to pray for the service.
So let me give him a microphone. Is that okay? Or I can let him hold one. You want to do that? Here you go.
We're
Cool.
live.
Yay. Hold
Father
it
God,
close to you. There you go.
Father God, I just ask you today to enter into this place. Father God, that you might allow us as we came in here, Father God, that we might have left whatever is bothering us outside. And Father God, that we might be changed due to the words spoken here today. Father God, I just ask that you give Pastor Tony and Reverend Denise the words that they need to say and that, Father, that we need to hear. I ask that you give us open ears and open hearts for whatever comes forth from your servants. Father God, I just ask that you allow us to leave this place different than we came. Father God, and that we might go out into the world and make a change for you. I'll ask all of this in the name of God. Amen.
Amen. I have to let you know that I knew this little boy. He's not a little boy anymore. When he was a little bitty boy at the School for the Blind. And if you see some tears in my eyes, it's because I have watched him grow up. So thank you for sharing that prayer with us this morning. All right, what a way to get started. Now let's stand up and sing it like we mean it. We are one. So it's all good. It's all fine. I want to mention to you something we've been talking about for a while. We won't spend a lot of time talking about it, but see Valerie Dennison or maybe Missy Bratton after the service if you're interested. You've heard about it. We've got the Maori Healers coming from New Zealand this month. July 18th and 19th is the Maori Healers Women's Workshop. And so please pick up a bulletin or get more information about that from our website or from Missy or from Valerie. And then, of course, July 20th through the 22nd,
are the Maori healing sessions. Last year when they were here, they were booked up solid, so be sure and try to get your name on the list for that. They were life-changing events. And as we ask Bee to come forward to do our sacred reading, I want to ask us all to just move into a place of thinking about sacred events. We've had events this week in our world that have not felt so sacred. But there is only God, and God is only good, and that is what we hold to.
Good morning. We are so blessed. We are so blessed here to be creating peace by reaching out to people that are different, we think, from us, and to find that in fact we are not different. We are more alike than we knew, and we are all one. Would the other prayer chaplains please stand? Please know that these wonderful prayer chaplains are here to pray with you if you would like to request prayer at any time. Thank you. Our sacred readings will be taken from a book by Margaret Wheatley, Turning to One Another, Simple Conversations to Restore Hope to the Future. This book gives not only information to think about, but also questions to stir deep conversation, something we did yesterday. The affirmation, I am growing in my awareness of truth. Say it with me. I am growing in my awareness of truth. I believe we can change the world if we start listening to one another again. What would it feel like to be listening to each other again? Not only about what disturbs us and troubles us, but also about what gives us energy, about our yearnings and prayers. When we come together to listen and to talk, we begin to come alive. We share what we see, what we feel, and we listen to what others see and feel. The simplest way to begin is to share what we care about. As we stop ignoring each other and engaging in fear-filled gossip, we begin to discover that at the core of our beings, we have more in common than we have different. This type of conversation takes time. We have to sit together, listen, dream, and talk. Fear of each other keeps us apart. And can we imagine what we might learn or what might be possible if we spoke to those we most fear? Let's remember we are one. Let's begin to reclaim conversation as our route back to each other, as the path forward to a future of hope and possibilities. Affirm with me once again. I am growing in my awareness of truth. Thank you.
So I ask that you just settle into your seats and focus on your breath for a moment. Maybe close your eyes. And those of you that come to this spiritual community know that we do something called a reset breath. So we blow out anything that we might have brought in here with us in this moment. And begin to take 3 deep breaths in. In my awareness of truth. And I ask myself in this quiet time, how do I know truth? Is it something that someone else has told me? Is it something that my culture believes is true? Is it something that I know from the inside of me when I drop those 18 inches from my head to my heart, that that is truth? I am growing in my awareness of truth. And as I go into a time of silence, I begin to realize that the truth has always been right inside me. In the silence. In the silence. I am growing in my awareness of truth. And as the scriptures say, be still and know. Be still and know that I am God. And that truth resonates in every cell of my body, in every organ in my body. Causes healing and wholeness in my body and in my mind and in my spirit. And so as we have sat here today, heart to heart, spirit to spirit, we have grown in our awareness of truth.
with me, the world will change, for we will all see that we are all God's children. We are all one family, learning to lean on each other and to live in sweet harmony. We are all God's children. We are all one family. Let's all love one another like the way God loves you and me. Oh, and when will we learn that it just doesn't matter about the color of skin? Oh, and when will we learn that it makes no difference if we cry out to Buddha or if we shout oh, we are all God's children. We are all one family. Just one. Learning to lean on each other and to live in sweet harmony. Oh, harmony. We are all God's children. We are all one family. Let's all love one another like the way God loves you and me. Like the way God loves you and me.
So see, we can get a little bit Pentecostal. Believe it or not, we are called the Pentecostal Unity in the Unity Movement, just for your information. Because we have so much music and so much stuff going on here that we are very much considered that amongst the Unity Movement. So, let me say that Judy and I had an interesting week with my parents and my two sons and their wives. We are very, 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 very happy to be home. Very. And I wouldn't take anything for the time that I spent with them, because I think that my mother, who is 84 and has heart conditions, and my father, who is 84, who is losing cognition, I think that, you know, every time I'm with them, I think this could be the last time I'm with either one of them. So it was a very touching time to be with them. Most of you know my story of growing up Church of Christ, which is how Tony and I have that connection. And the only time I was ever free to be was 2 weeks every summer in Florida. So there is such a sweetness about going to Florida with my parents and knowing that this is something we did for years and years and years together. So I also want to thank Tim Bays, who held it all together for us along with wonderful Deb while we were gone last week. But hear me, we are very grateful to be home because this is where we belong. It's very obvious that we belong here. And because of today and how important this is, not only for myself, but for this congregation, I chose as a topic, and Tony agreed, we hold these truths. Because we just got through July the 4th. Most of you out there had to at least memorize a little bit of that. Remember that in school? And standing up and saying it and getting checked off that you knew it so that, yay, you got a grade, an A or something. But what does that really mean? What truths are we holding? We hold these truths to be self-evident. And again, in the meditation, I ask you to go deeply about what truths you are holding. I love to have conversations with my sister Deb, philosophical conversations, because sometimes it's like, what really is true? And how do you know that's true? I try to have those conversations with Judy, and she just writes a song around it. So, we can't have those conversations, because I end up singing a song about it, and I didn't even want to do that. I just wanted to talk about it. But what are the truths that I hold, and where did they come from? And I don't know about everyone sitting here, but I know when I went through what Unity calls ministerial school, other traditions call it seminary, we had to look deeply at what we believe to be true. And what they ask us to do is throw everything out and start over. That was very difficult. Because they said, you are coming in here with a lot of baggage from your past. You're coming in here with preconceived ideas of what you think is true, and then we're going to try to open your minds, and sometimes your minds won't open if you think, oh, no, I don't believe that. That was very difficult for me, because I had gone to David Lipscomb from 7th grade through my undergraduate college, and I had been inundated with truths from someone else. And it's like, how do I get through all that? But the writers of this said that the truths that they're talking about are self-evident. My sons would say they are duh kind of things. Something we already know. We don't have to learn them. We already know them. They're inside of us. So what are those truths? Wow. That all men, or I would say and women, all people are created equal. Have we seen that this week? Do we see it all the times in our lives? These people that wrote this obviously believed it. We say we believe it here. But do we really hold these truths? Because I know when I first said, Pastor Tony, from a more evangelical and Pentecostal type church is coming, I had a few people go, as I said yesterday, the cushions come ripping up off the seats while you're sitting there. And know that when he first said that Reverend Denise is going to come in over here, I know a lot of those people got online and started looking me up going, who in the world is that? And what might she bring in here? We don't know. Because they deal with me every Sunday morning and they never know. What do I believe to be true, and am I open enough to look at it? To contemplate it, to talk to someone else about it? Do you know what it is to be endowed by your Creator? Those of us in Unity talk about this a lot. But that you are given, it's your birthright. You were born into this. God is calling from somewhere. You were born into this. We're all one. We all come out of the same stuff. And when you came out of your mother, it was breathed into you the breath of life, and you became a living being, a living soul. Wow. Wow. How many of you have ever seen a live birth? Some of you were on the other end of it, I know, because I was too, several times. I've seen some live births, and I've given birth to 2 children, and it's a little bit harder to see that, even though they do provide mirrors sometime, and you go, I don't want to see that. Please, no. But that baby coming out is such a miracle. Wow. And you just look at that and go, wow, how's all that work? And that was inside of me? And where was all of that? My second son, Austin, was 10 pounds, 2 ounces. And I'm like, where was all of that? I don't know. I do know because it was very uncomfortable the last 2 or 3 months to breathe and walk. Nola remembers that. I walked like this at the School for the Blind. And actually, the superintendent of the School for the Blind made an edict the last month and a half before I gave birth to Austin that I did not have to get up and walk to anybody, that they had to come to me. Because he was afraid that I would give birth in the hall. It's like, nope, Mr. Brewer. He was like, stay in your office. Don't come out. We don't want you to give birth in the hall in front of all kids. Of course, BJ you wouldn't have seen, so what he was worried about, but anyway. But do you realize that you are endowed, that it is your birthright to be one with everybody else, and that you're equal to everyone else? Wow, that's pretty cool. With certain unalienable rights. It's an interesting word, isn't it? Unalienable. My first thought was little Martian people. What does that mean? Exactly. What does that mean? So, of course, I looked it up. I should have had Deb just look it up. But what I wrote down is that it cannot be taken away. Wow. Cannot. Now, I'm not sure that everybody in the world would agree with that. Because sometimes we, in our humanness, try to take that away from somebody else, don't we? You're not good enough. You've done something wrong. One of the questions we asked yesterday in the circle, and when I asked the question, I was ever so grateful that everyone was standing up because the cushions were saved. I said, what do you think needs to happen to people who kill or hurt other people? See, even it happened in here. Everybody's like, because we can't take those rights away from people, even if we throw them in jail. Even if someone kills them, they're still endowed by their Creator with those rights. We cannot take those away. Think about people that survived the Holocaust. It may have been rough. They may have had to go through all kinds of things. But no matter what they went through, their rights could not be taken away. The right that they were endowed by their Creator, that they were one with everybody, nobody can take that away. And here's what they say our rights are. Life. Everybody breathe. That's it. In Unity, we talk about life being the breath that breathes you. That's your life. Liberty is your freedom to be who you are. Even though I know that there are some of us sitting in here, that there have been places that we have walked into that did not want us to be who we were. And so it felt like that somebody was trying to take away our rights. In the pursuit of happiness. You know, I talk about happiness a lot. My message from God about 20 years ago is, Denise, you are here to bring joy back to the planet. And I went, oh, please, can't you give me another assignment? I don't like that one. Well, God's never lifted that from me. It's like, this is yours. You're here to bring happiness to the planet. I don't want to. Sometimes I want to be miserable and moan with everybody else. You know? But I know that I know that I know it's my job. Because I said yes. Yes, I will bring happiness to the planet. You know, at one point in time yesterday in our circle, I felt things get a little tight. People that were here felt it. Because we were talking about things that we're afraid of out in the world. And you know, when we have experiences like we had over the last week, fears come up for people and they don't know what to do with them. And when we throw a lot of fears out on the table, what are we afraid of? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Some of us go, I'm unity, I'm enlightened, I don't have fears, I'm going to leave the room. I don't want to experience all that stuff. See, y'all don't have to worry about that. But you did hear me yesterday, those of you who were here, that I said unity to me has become like a stale loaf of bread. And I say that with all the love that I can. Because the world now needs more than love and light. It needs more than us sitting and going, well, I'll pray for you, bless your heart. Amen. It needs action. Compassionate action from all of us that are sitting here. Now, yes, prayers are important. I pray every day for every one of you that are in here. And what I attempt to do on Sunday morning, because I have a little bit of a photographic memory, is I memorize faces. And so when I sit in my meditation time, I call to mind your faces. I call to mind your faces as you sat in meditation. And so I remember faces. And I pray for each of you. Because that's important to me. But I also know that if I don't get off my bahunkas and go do something for someone who's hurting, that I can't stop there. I want you to see this. This is one of the teachers that I had when I was in ministerial school. Her name is Barbara Marks Hubbard. They brought her into Unity Village. She is someone that talks a lot about the link between science and spirituality and how the link has gotten so very close. It's almost the same thing in many places. And she rewrote this, what I just went through. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all people are born creative. I want you to think about that for a minute. Endowed by our Creator with the inalienable right and responsibility. Say that word with me. Responsibility. All that is your ability to respond. That's all it is. Because when I say responsibility to unity people, they go, love and light, that's my responsibility. The right and responsibility to express our creativity for the sake of ourselves and our world. It's my responsibility. It's your responsibility. This is the way we chose to do this earlier this year. Lots of you in this room were a part of this. We said, no matter what goes on during this year, we choose peace. And out of all this has come our peace circles. Becky, we talked about you earlier. Yay. So what does all that look like? Well, in just a moment, Tony is going to come here. But before he does, and you all probably have figured out why our name is Unity of Music City, we are full of music. full of it. And most of the music we do is written by this amazing woman right here. I want to read the verses of the song that the choir is getting ready to sing before Tony comes up here to share with you all. The search for God is unending. The quest for truth goes on. Are we singing another verse to the same old song? Until we stop the fighting and find our common ground, this going nowhere, pointless circle just keeps spinning round. Just take that in for a minute. And the second verse is, I've not walked in your shoes, and you've not walked in mine. When we honor all pathways, love and peace we'll find. Until we treat each other with respect and dignity, what a joyous celebration for all humanity. Voices.
At the end of the day
Good morning to everyone. Good morning. I'm glad Becky made it. I think Becky was a Baptist in another life. I'm glad that she's here.
She's sitting on the back row.
See what I mean? I am glad to be here today. I bring you greetings from the Church of the Living Water, where I've been blessed to be the pastor this coming December for the last 20 years. We have several of our members here today, and I'm always so thankful that they're willing and ready to go with me wherever it is I drag them to. I'm thankful for that. And first of all, I wanted to tell you that lots of times that, in my message today, lots of things that I don't want you to get hung up in verbiage.
Right.
You know, because you say, you know, tomato, and somebody else says tomato, you know, and I say taters and beans. So, lots of times it's just verbiage, right? We're saying the same thing, just sometimes we're saying it in a different way. So, and I can't say it any other way, but, you know, it kind of is, but it is, the way it comes out. But I am thankful to be able to be here today. I want to give you two passages of Scripture, and then I'm going to go into what I want to say today. First is in Matthew, the 22nd chapter, and starting in the 27th through the 40th verse. Matthew, the 22nd chapter, verses 37 through 40. It says, Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. This is the first and the greatest commandment." And then over in Acts, the 2nd chapter, the first verse, it talks about on the day of Pentecost, when the church people had gathered together at that time. They had gathered together and had come to a place where they were with one accord. And so just because we believe different ways of how we're getting to where we're going doesn't mean we're still not going to the same place. Right? There are a lot of different paths to get there, but we started from the same place and we're trying to go to the same place. And I do hate today, I did plan on bringing snakes and chickens, and I forgot. Denise had made such a big deal. I had found a place that had rubber snakes and rubber chickens. And I was going to kind of toss them to Denise about halfway through the sermon. And then we might have seen the parting of the waters. Because sometimes I get kind of lively and get on top of stuff, and I thought, well, I'll see who all gets on top of stuff. But I thought best how to tie those things in with what we were talking about today, about these truths in our lives. All the truths are very similar, but those truths from our lives have made us to who we are today, right? And lots of times we get so hung up in that, because we can't get over those things that happened in the past to let us get to who we need to be right now. Some of us have had bad things in our history, right?
Yes.
Because all of you have a past, whether you want to admit it or not, right? You know. But that was our past. It was just that. We have to get beyond that to do that. And so I thought I would just touch on a moment just to give you my history that would help make sense with that. I, like Denise, was born in the Church of Christ. I was born in a little small town called Legtown, Alabama. If you can't tell by my southern drawl, that's where I'm from. In Legtown, Alabama. And everybody in my family was Church of Christ, and if you weren't Church of Christ, you were going to hell. No beating around the bush. You know, you were going to Church of Christ, you were going to get to heaven if you were, you know, no pass go. So it was very difficult, because I was also raised in a community where black people and white people didn't worship together. We also didn't go to school together. And all these things seemed to intrigue me so much, because my grandmother lived across the street from a black church. And I would go there. She would tell me when they were having special events, and I would go there and we'd turn off all the lights. And I'd sit under the window and we would listen to all the stuff going on over there. And people would be hollering and shouting and falling out. And they'd be bringing people outside. And I was like, what are they doing over there? Because at my church, you'd hear a handkerchief drop. You know, like, what's up? And then I thought, well, is it just a white thing? You know, black thing? What is this about? But the truth was, what I held truth was a lot different from what it really was. And so it made it very hard for me. I had a horrible time in school because my name being Certain at that time, Sissy and Certain went good together. So that was my name throughout my school. Been put in lockers, been on top of stuff, put under stuff, in stuff, all that kind of stuff. So I had it real hard as a child. So finally I decided at age 13, I didn't know what gay was. Because at that time, you didn't see anybody that was gay. Because in my house, you only watched certain things on television. Like we didn't watch any shows that were black. You know, we didn't watch any shows that were about religion. You know, we had to watch Andy Griffin and Bonanza and all that kind of stuff. You know, Soul Train had come on and I'd be so excited, but good luck. So I was born in this very strict place where your hair couldn't touch your ears, your hair couldn't touch your collar. You didn't go swimming with the girls, which to me was a big deal. But my biggest problem was because the feelings I had were different, and you couldn't have different feelings. And that's so far from the truth today. So finally at age 13, I decided I was going to tell my parents that I was different. I didn't know what the word was. At that time, I really didn't know what gay was. Because they would say homosexual, that big old long word. And I told my parents. And at that time, my sister is 13 years older than me, and my brother is 10 years older than me. And they weren't at home by this time. So I told my parents what I thought. At the end of that conversation, I was sent to my bedroom. Our house was very quiet. In the church crisis, you know, they don't have any emotion. Everything's very stoic. So the next morning, I wake up, and my brother and my sister are both home. They have came home from where they lived. They both lived out of town. They were both there. My breakfast was ready, and my mother told me to eat my breakfast, and then she said, you and your daddy are leaving. So I got in the car with my father, and we headed to town, and we pulled into the bus station, the Greyhound bus station, and my father handed me a ticket, and he says, your suitcase is in the trunk. Gave me my ticket. I got out and got my suitcase, and there I was, 13 years old, had never been anywhere but Lake Town, Alabama. And here I am with a ticket in my suitcase, and I'm being sent to Salt Lake City. To a school that was going to correct me. Because at that time, that's what the Church of Christ did, was they corrected you. Which to me was wonderful at first, because they took me from there where it was nobody but me and sent me into school with 300 boys. My truths were real foggy all of a sudden. But I went there and I stayed there for 3 long years, and it was just beat into us. And you hear people talk about people beating you with the Bible. And that's a literal thing. They beat us with that Bible about how we were wrong, and we just had to deal with those feelings we had, because if we acted on those feelings, we were going to hell. There wasn't any ifs, ands, or buts, no grace period. You were going to hell. You would just marry a woman and you'd just be miserable, and that's how it was. So I come home after 3 years, and I decided, well, the little boys that I had talked to before, by now don't want to be bothered, so I thought, well, I'll go out with her. You know, maybe I'll see what this hyphen is all about. So I go out with a girl, and we decided that, you know, if we did, this was going to change things. So we did, and so sure enough, she was pregnant within after that night. So I go from being in a school to be changed to I'm a 16-year-old child expecting a father and had to get married. because to correct my sin, I had to marry this girl. So we lived together for 7 years. I was so miserable, because it was a job to me, a job. But my truths were so different, and because of what I had been told my truth should be, because I had been listening to what people told me instead of what a higher power was telling me. So finally, my wife decided, I could give her what she wanted, so she started dating somebody else, which was wonderful to me. So we decided to go, we ended up getting a divorce. If you get a divorce in Alabama, that's not a good thing. During the court proceedings, she had been gone for 6 months, and I had had our son by myself. She waited till I met somebody, because I had finally come to the conclusion, well, if I'm going to be miserable and go to hell, I might as well be happy now. Then go to hell. My truths had begun to change. So then when we had our divorce, in the courtroom, my parents were fighting against us because they said she wasn't fit because she was with another man, and I wasn't fit because I was gay, so they wanted our child. So the court system in Alabama, being the bigotry system that it is, that day that we had our court proceeding, the sign on the water fountain that said "for coloreds only" was taken down that day. So that shows you how behind they were. And this is in 1989. Wow. So my wife was given my child a brand new house we just built, 100 acres it sat on, and a big chunk of me every week. And I could see my child as long as there was not another man that wasn't a blood. That man had to be a blood relative to be in my house with me in order for me to have my son there. So my truths are getting a little foggy. I'm not understanding this all of a sudden. So I go through all this. I'm still trying to struggle living down there, and I turned to my grandmother, and I had the most wonderful grandmother in the world. To tell you a little cute story about her, she was so cute. She was like Edith and Archie Bunker were my grandparents. And we were in town doing something earlier. The reason she was always my favorite. And we were in Ben Franklin's. Do you remember? Yes. We had a Ben Franklin's, and I wanted this little teapot. And this teapot, you would turn it over, and it looked like the tea would run out of it. Yes. Well, I just wanted this teapot so bad. So my brother's like, "Oh, don't let him have that. You're going to make him a sissy, Mama. Make him buy a gun or a truck or something." So I start crying, so Mama sends me to the car. Because being boys, you didn't cry. Right. And you definitely didn't in public. So when we get back to my grandmother's house, she asked me to stay with her a little while, so I did. We go in her bedroom. She locks the door. And she opens her pocketbook, and she has that little coffee pot for me. I was only allowed to play with it in her room when my grandfather wasn't there, because my grandfather at that time called me a faggot, and I was 8 or 9. So truths were so different at that time. So I always cherished my grandmother after that, to the point that when I was going through all these the problems with my divorce, my mother didn't talk to me because, first of all, I had got a divorce, and in Church of Christ, that's your first no-no. Yeah. Because you can't get divorced. My second no-no, I was getting divorced, and I liked men. So that was my other divorce, my other problem. Then I drank to try to cover up all that. So see, I was triply doomed where I was going. And then I had started attending that little black church, so I was just really messed up. This had happened because I was looking for something. So many people we have today are looking for something and don't realize what is it you're looking for. But I knew I wanted something different. And I started at a black church, and they loved me, first of all, because I was a white man coming to a black church. They loved me. And then once I got in their religion and realized that you didn't have to sit still and sit quiet, I realized that I could jump up and I could holler, I could clap, or I could do all these things. And so I loved that my truths were changing. But then things got more screwed up. I do that sometimes. I preach a crap sermon in our church. Because sometimes it just is what it is. And sometimes we mess around trying to make it pretty instead of telling you what it really is. And sometimes there's no way to make it pretty. It is what it is. And I would rather say one thing that you understood than 20 and you ain't got a clue what I'm talking about. So anyway, this had gotten really hard in my life. In my truths, I was having so much trouble just not knowing what to do. I had made the decision I was carrying my son to my mother's, and it was a half of a mile distance or whatever, and we played this little game called Kick the Can. Some of you might can remember that. We would kick, and so my grandmother didn't want me to walk. She says, "Oh son, drive your car up to your mama's." I'm like, "Granny, it's a nice afternoon, we're just going to kick this can, and that's extra time me and him can spend going up the road." But for some reason, she just wasn't for me doing that. I just couldn't do that. I just couldn't do that. I'm like, "Well, yes, Granny, we're just going to do that." So we did. I carried him to my mother's house, and at that time, my mother opened her door about this wide. And my son was allowed in, and she shut the door. And when I'd go back to get him, she'd open about this wide, and he could come out, but then she shut the door. So as I'm going back to my grandmother's, I got about halfway down the hill, and I heard a vehicle. And the vehicle I heard, I recognized the sound because it was one of my mother's brothers who was a deacon in the church. So he's coming over that hill, and not only was he a deacon in the church, but he was the grand poobah of the KKK movement there. So I got stopped between my mother's and my grandmother's. And of course they all got out of their truck, and was going to make sure that when they got through with me, I wouldn't be gay anymore. Well, that wasn't the case. I made it through that. When I got back to my grandmother's house, she had my car packed, had found me a job in Nashville, Tennessee, had got all the money she had in her pocket, and gave me and sent me away. Now this is the truth of a little old Church of Christ woman that had believed that I'm going to hell for what I'm doing. She couldn't admit that her son was the one that tried to do all this damage to me, but her truths were even changing because she knew I was her grandson and she loved me, and she had to get me away. So she did that. I came to Nashville, and the rest is history. Thank you, Jesus. I came here, I met a wonderful partner. We've been together 23 years. We went to church, we found a church called MCC. And that's where we met Brother Tim Sharp. Y'all were at MCC. And it was wonderful for a while, but there was something missing because MCC accomplished what it needed to in the beginning because we didn't have anywhere to go to church, so they started a church where we had somewhere to go to church. But then to me it just was bad because I'm like, well, we're doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. They don't want us over there, so now we started our own church, so now we don't want them over here. So, that's just really screwed up, isn't it? Our truths were still in such disarray. So we founded the Church of the Living Water, and as of this day, we have the exact same amount of straight people as we do gay people. Because I tell people my truth is, it's none of my business who you're voting for or who you're sleeping with. My job is to tell you about Jesus. And y'all need to work it out. As much as we want to fix their problems, we can give them some duct tape and some super glue, but that's about all we can do. Because your truths are your truths. And yes, you're going to tell the pastor what you think the pastor wants you to hear. Amen. Whether you want to hear it or not. Well, sometimes, though, they just tell you that way you'll let them alone. They won't tell you what's really going to happen. But that's why I'm glad when the day comes and this world is gone and I stand there, it's not going to make a flip what Pastor Denise thought. Or what that bigoted uncle of mine thought. Or what that judge thought in Alabama. What's going to matter is the one up there will have the last say. Our truths have to change and realize that I can't change that uncle. He's dead and gone. You know, I can't change the beliefs that people in the Church of Christ have. Right. And why should we? Why should we spend our energy trying to change them when we need to worry about changing us? I can work 365 days a year taking care of Tony. I ain't got no time for you. You know, and I have a full-time job keeping me straight. But then again, you think, well, but we all have to be on the same road and we all have to worship the same way. What book did you read that out of? The Bible doesn't say that, does it? You know, even though there's lots of things in this book I don't like. Lots of things I don't like, it says. But it also says it didn't give me a choice. Does it?
Right.
When our mothers used to whip us, she would want us to do certain things, and we'd say, well, why? And my mother would say, because I said so. That's why. She didn't explain to me. Some things this book doesn't give us an explanation for. If we knew what was going to happen tomorrow, no telling what Denise would do. You know, the one that created us was smart enough to know that he couldn't let us know what was going to happen tomorrow because we would mess things up. Would we not? Or we would wait till 9:05 in the morning to get things right if he was coming at 9:10. It doesn't happen that way. Or I don't go to church regularly, but I'll start going next week because they said next Sunday's the day. How do we know? The bad things that we heard happened this week. They didn't have a clue those things were going to happen, did they? If they weren't in the right place that they need to be, we can't change that, can we? No. All we can change is us. And all we should be worrying about is us. I want all my church to go to heaven. But I can't carry them all on my back. Right. Sometimes, you know, you got to pull them kicking and screaming to get them to church. Much less talking about getting them to heaven. But if we would do, it tells us that the greatest commandment that the Lord gives us is to love each other as we love ourselves, right? Yes. And if we did that commandment, none of the others would make any difference. Amen. Right? Amen. How simple it is. We're the ones that make it so drastically complicated. Yeah. Well, you know, you've got to do this, or you've got to say so many Hail Marys, or you've got to pray here, or in your worship service, well, you've got to make sure we do this many songs today before they preach, or we got to make sure we do Sister Judy's song today because she'll be mad if we don't get to her song. But surprise to Sister Judy, it ain't got nothing to do with her. Right? It has nothing to do with me. Many times at our church, a couple of months ago, a girl came to the altar and she had one of the little kids, and I thought she was bringing the kid to me. So because sometimes I'll preach with the kid on my hip. So I just reached down and picked him up and went back to sit down, and she's still standing there. And I thought, what's she doing? So then I thought, oh, well, I guess she wanted me to pray for her. So I go back over, and I began praying for her, and 45 minutes later, I had prayed over everybody in church. So I prayed and said, God bless you, and we was through. We didn't sing the first song. We didn't take up the first dollar. We didn't make the first announcement. Because at that time, that's what was needed. We get so caught up in the religious part of it, we squeeze out the most important part of it. Right? The truth that He loves all of us just like this.
Right, yeah.
Because how could he have made us like this to send us to hell? That don't make any sense, does it? Nowhere in my Bible does it say you got to be a Baptist or a Pentecostal or, heaven forbid, a Church of Christ. It says we have to be Christians. You know, because lots of people I think are going to be so surprised when they get to heaven and there ain't a Baptist church or there ain't a Church of Christ up there. Why should it matter? Why should it matter if there's not another Unity Church? What should it matter if there's not another Church of the Living Water? Those names are just names, aren't it? These buildings are just buildings. We are the church.
Yes.
The truths we should be holding to are that we are what has to make a difference, right? We have to make it. Yes, sometimes we've got to go, might not necessarily be comfortable. Because some asked me when I was coming here today, another pastor from here in town, he's like, "Are you sure you're going over there?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I know her, she's never asked me." I said, "Well, I don't know if that's